Welcome to week 12, episode 13 of Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBook. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Happy Thanksgiving, Tiki. It's time for food, football, and some other F word.
Flying?
I was going to say F you something and fun. Like,
fun.
You're such a dirty-minded dude, man.
I thought you meant flying because you got to fly to Charlottesville on the Ronde Barber Appreciation Tour continues post Hall of Fame to get honored at the University of Virginia. I guess I'll do some video. They asked me to do it. I'm going down to maybe the game of the weekend, the Houston Texans hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Those teams aren't playing fantastic, but they're fighting for the division. So that's what my weekend has in store. I'm actually, for the first time, as a spectator, because I did this when I was working for NBC, going to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And my director, Andy Goldberg's mother, has an apartment that's right on Central Park West. So we're going to be right by the balloons. So it's going to be cool. That's what my week has in store.
Dude, the balloon you should be looking for is the One Piece balloon.
What is that?
Do you know what One Piece is?
No idea.
Your kids will know what One Piece is. Mm-hmm. Go look it up. And it's a show on Netflix. My daughter has read all the graphic comics.
Okay. If you say so, maybe it's something I'll get into. I'm more into football, though, because it's moving time, Rondé, for the NFL. All the teams trying to fully solidify who they actually are. And I guess we got to start with the Bills, because the Bills fire their head coach, or fire their offensive coordinator, I should say, probably in an effort to save the head coach from being fired. And it works, right? They come out, they have an unbelievable performance. Obviously, it was against the New York Jets, who couldn't do anything offensively. But, I mean, I don't know what to make of the Bills. One week I'm saying they're back. The next week I say they suck. It's impossible to define them.
I feel like we're going to be saying that the rest of the year. They're back. They're not back. They're enigmatic. They might be the most enigmatic team in history, because they have so much expectation. We know what the quarterback is. Yeah. Yes, we've talked ad nauseum about the amount of injuries that they've had on defense or whatnot. But at the end of the day, they're still good enough to win, and yet they don't. And then they go and fire Ken Dorsey, his offensive coordinator. And you implement Joe Brady, who we talked about last week, obviously getting his chance to impart his influence on this offense. And immediately, Tiki, you see the difference in what Joe Brady is going to do with Josh Allen and what Ken Dorsey was trying to do. Ken Dorsey was trying to make his quarterback the most high-flying player at the position. And Joe Brady was like, hey, dude, you're going to check the ball down, you're going to get it out of your hands, and you're not going to make the mistakes that keep losing us football games. Is that fair to say?
No, it is exactly what it's fair to say, because that's what Joe Brady is known to do. Right? When he was at LSU, he had so many options who to get the ball to, from Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Terrace Marshall is a lost name because he went to the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire was there as well. So, I mean, you didn't have to force anything. Just make the play winning football, and eventually the big ones will come. And that's what it felt like. The big touchdown to Shakur, which was on Sauce Gardner. He just got beat, and Sauce kind of gave up on the play and knocked his own guy off of it, and resulted in a 70-plus yard touchdown. Those are the type of plays that come when you dink and dunk and get the little gainers before you focus on getting the big ones. And I think that's the difference. I think that's the difference you have to see with this Buffalo Bills team. We know it, Rondé. Offense is different in the NFL. Sometimes you want to go deep all the time, but it's really just get it to your playmakers. Let them do the work.
Well, you know what it's even more about? Possession. P in one, possession in one, and then every subsequent 1st and 10. That's the only thing you care about off possession. It's not about pushing the ball to Stephon Diggs, having his brother call out the team for not getting the football. That's who cares? You need to win. This segment is on again, off again, and Tiki, the next on again, off again team, and I think they're probably going to be off for the rest of the year, is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, you don't love Jake Browning?
I forget what school do you go to? Did you go to Washington? Is that you? Is that you?
Maybe. I don't even
So you
know.
don't even know, and you're
Right.
telling me I don't love him? You don't even know he went to school. Um,
I just don't love backup quarterbacks, Ronnie. This has been a year where the backup quarterback has become ubiquitous with trying to find success, and I don't think it works. Right? There's certain teams that it's getting by with, and the Minnesota Vikings are one with Joshua Dobbs. But I think a lot of that is the coordinator slash the head coach,
right.
and so I think when you have a backup having to step into a role and try to do what the starter did, you have no chance. So the only way to have success is to completely change your offense or dumb it down or find something else that this player is good at. I have no idea what it is with Jake Browning. And so it's going to be hard for me to trust that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to weather this, especially in the AFC North, which is a gauntlet of teams. Even when you look at the Cleveland Browns, who lose both their quarterbacks and Dorian Thompson Robinson, who
Right.
leads a game-winning drive and kicks it to kick the field goal against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like it doesn't make sense. So they're fun at times, but then you also can't trust them at all.
Jake Browning, college free agent 2019 out of University of Washington.
Oh,
Second team
good
was
call.
free agent in 2022. I don't know why I knew that. I think because Jimmy Lake was the head coach at the time when he was
Ah,
there.
that's right.
It's just stuck in my mind. But they are now, I think, if they can find a way to win uh, any of their remaining games with this quarterback, because it was an offense that was struggling with Joe Burrow prior
Mhm.
to his hot streak, that 3 or 4 game winning streak that they got on coming into this. And then they just got embarrassed. There was a bad loss to Baltimore last week. There was really not much even competitive about that 34-20 loss. I mean, Jake Browning did come in. He had 4 attempts for 40 yards.
Huh,
That's not
garbage.
that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough going forward for this football team, especially in the division which they're in, which we've said many times this past couple of weeks, the most competitive division in certainly in the AFC. That being said, the other on and off team, you mentioned them just a second ago, and we're going to get into their offensive coordinator firing later in this show. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are still without an offense. And you said it, an even worse loss than Cincinnati had at Baltimore was their loss to
Mm.
Cleveland with a rookie quarterback last week. It's hard for you to reconcile that the Pittsburgh Steelers with minus 29 point differential or even in games, but they were finding a way to do it. And then they get a perfect opportunity in a winnable game against the backup quarterback, and they can't mitigate what is the best defense in football in the Browns, and they lose by a score.
Yeah, and the emotions bubbled over after this when you heard Najee Harris saying, basically this isn't football's not hard. I'm gonna how I would say it. Football's not a hard sport. You do
Right.
find the things that you do well and do that consistently. And that led to obviously the firing of the OC, which we'll get into later, Rondé, in the Ask You, Ask Me section. But I do think that sometimes firing a coordinator and trying to go in a different direction is all you need. It's like a Hawthorne effect. This is a Hawthorne. I forget what they made, but it was a factory where they changed the lights. And they did this experiment in the 1800s. They changed the lights, productivity went up. They put the lights down, productivity went up as well. So it's all about attention to the
Football player?
detail.
How the hell do you know that? What the
Because I
hell?
had to study it for some business class that we took at the University of Virginia, and it was so I did a report on it, so it sticks in my head. It's all it's the basic the crux of the matter is when you show attention to something, it often increases productivity, whether
Right.
or not that change actually has a tangible effect, right? They turned the lights up, productivity went up. They turned the lights down, productivity went up. It's just that they were paying attention. And I think that's the best thing that Mike Tomlin did is that he changed the environment so it looks like he cares about the complaints that were clearly coming from that locker room.
From the locker room, certainly from the fan base. I mean, the fan base has been asking for this firing, so quote unquote, since the beginning of the year. I think it was week 1 they were talking about firing this guy, and they finally get it done. And to your point, perspective changes not only from the coaches and the new coordinator, who I don't even know who that is at this point, but from the players. To me, it puts them on notice.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, you're saying we're making a change that we all think needs to be made. Now it's your turn to go perform on those changes. That being said, These two teams play each other this week. The Steelers at Bengals. It's a +1. It might as well be a pick 'em right now, if you ask me. Bengals with a new coordinator or new coach. Steelers with the new coordinator. Whatever you do, probably don't take the 34.5 over. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in there.
Well, I mean, even with stability, these teams weren't scoring a ton of points. Cincinnati, you thought could on any given day. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't scoring any points. And you're right. They have a new coordinator. Who knows what that's going to look like? They may run the ball 35 times. The Cincinnati Bengals obviously have a new quarterback, and we have no idea what he's going to look like. So it's definitely, I would say, the under. But this is the game for me that the Steelers need to get right. When you hear them talking about, the sitting at 6-3, feeling like they're still in it, but it's ultimately they want to play well, and they haven't played well this year, and they know it, right? They know that they're fortunate to be where they are in the division. It's all about playing well. So I'd take the Steelers here, who are laying a point on the road. So they're a road favorite. So again, you're right. It's a pick 'em. I think the Steelers win this game.
Well, I think it's on the money line. It's 115 for the Steelers and 105, both negative for the Bengals. So take the one's going to give you more money. Who else can we talk about up and down? I mean, I almost hate doing this, but I know our producer and our friends in Colorado want to talk about the Broncos. 4 straight wins. And I sit here and I write my notes and I say, well, WTF? How are they winning football games? And yet they are winning football games. They've won 4 in a row. Defense has been really, I mean, the catalyst.
It's come back because they got healthy. Justin Simmons got healthy. They had some other pieces come back on the defensive side of the ball. And so they're able to I don't know, mitigate the ineffectiveness of their offense. Like, it's funny. So the Denver Broncos win 4 in a row, and now everybody wants to say Russ is back. Russ is fantastic. But are you watching the games?
If you watch the games, you know that's not true.
That's not true. Yes, they are winning, and I'm more apt to give credit to Sean Payton for keeping this team together when it was easy could have fallen apart when they were 1-5 playing bad football. They lost to the Jets at home. I remember that I was calling that game, right? It could have fallen apart. They started trading players. It was like, dude, this is just a strip down. Cortland Sutton's going to be out the door soon. Right. Russ is nuts. They're going to draft a quarterback next year because they're going to be the worst team in football. And yet Sean Payton does what Sean Payton does. He just finds ways to win. And we always assume it's going to be offense because that's what he's known for. He did it with the Giants. He obviously did it in New Orleans. They were just going to find a way to be explosive. They're not explosive. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and their defense plays good football. That's what it comes down to.
Right. You know why they're annoying to watch is because if you are an outsider looking in, you don't watch the games, you think that they're doing a lot of good things. But where the credit goes is to Vance Joseph on his defense. Whatever 360 they pulled out of their hat about 5 weeks ago, it's the reason why they're now on a 4-game winning streak. 5 takeaways, I should say, against Kansas City Chiefs, the reason they won. 2 weeks ago against the Buffalo Bills at 3 takeaways, the reason they won. This past weekend, 3 takeaways against the Minnesota Vikings. It's the reason they won. I sit here and watch Russell Wilson hold on to the ball still, not letting go on time. I mean, I know that's part of play design. And that last drive, he made 1 throw, just like he did the week before. He made 1 throw to Cortland Sutton for the touchdown. Everything else was a scrambled check down. I mean, that's what their offense is.
It is.
It's how long can I hold on to this ball, survive, and then get the ball to a running back in the flat because the defenses are sinking. That being said, Russell Wilson's done this his whole career. His late game magic we want to discount it, but you can't discount it because it's legit. It happens over and over and over and over again. So to say anything otherwise would be lying to the fact that he's done it so many times.
It's interesting because that's why he left or he wanted to leave Seattle, because he wanted to be more than that. He wanted to win an MVP. He wanted to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. He wanted to solidify his Hall of Fame candidacy by saying, I can go someplace else and do it differently. But you are who you are. He's a smaller quarterback. And it's not to knock him, it's just a reality of who he is. So when he's off schedule and he's moving out of the pocket and he's finding checkdowns and he's making plays with his legs, that's what makes him really good. And then he has the talent offensively to take some of those shots, Mims and Cortland Sutton, who I mentioned before. The other thing, and I got to go back to this because I remember calling this game earlier in the year, Rondé. They were ready to fire Vance Joseph.
I know.
The fan base, like every media, they were ready to get him up out of there. But he's brand new, right? You got a new system. You got 3 or 4 at least guys in the second and third levels banged up with injuries, and they're still trying to understand what he's asking them to do.
Well,
now they do.
To your point, the only person, because Vance Joseph was there, correct? The only person on that defense that had familiarity with his system was Justin Simmons. Yep. And then they transferred to Fangio, and then he's trying to think about trying to morph out of a Vic Fangio system back into the system that you had in that same organization 5 years ago.
Right.
That's where the dysfunction is. All right, Denver Broncos home, 2.5-point favorites to the best defense in football. Cleveland Browns coming to town. I think that one's 35.5 too. There's not going to be any points in this game. Don't bet the over if you're a believer in what we're talking about here. All right, last one, Tiki. I know you can't discuss this, but the Jacksonville Jaguars just pummeled Tennessee after getting pummeled by the San Francisco 49ers the week before. This is a great game in the AFC South. 7-3 Jags are minus 120. Favorites against the 6-4 Texans, who are plus 1.5 at home, 48 over. So Houston, dude, second longest winning streak in the AFC behind the team we just finished talking about, the Denver Broncos. I mean, it's hard to say one way or another, but going into Week 12, this is a really interesting matchup. So if you're so inclined, I know Tiki's not going to say any words about this one, but I am going to ask him a question. Since you're doing this game,
yes,
what's it like working with Matty Ice? Does he take all the good comments because he's a quarterback? What's up with quarterbacks like having to be like the all know-it-alls? And
yes, because they do know it all. But there's something about quarterbacks that the growth of the quarterback ruined the NFL. Let that sink in for a second. The growth of the star quarterback ruined the NFL. I'm sure you heard Tom Brady's comments about how the product it's mediocre, right? The play, the coaching is not as good. The play design is not as good. And you know why? Because I thought about his comments, like, what is he actually trying to say? And the reality is the growth of the star quarterback made offenses about the star quarterback as opposed to everything else. I mean, we can have a deep conversation about this because there's a lot of run game that we used to do. All I see now is duo and inside zone.
Right.
That's all I see.
That's it.
That is all I see. All right, we'll take a break, Rondé. Come back. We're going to talk about the league parity. I mean, is this good? Is it bad? I guess I kind of like it, but it kind of sucks not knowing what's going to happen on any other weekend. All right, you can win a trip to the biggest football game of the year, courtesy of SuperBook Sports. SuperBook will fly you and a friend to Las Vegas for February's championship game. They'll also give you 2 tickets to the game, plus a 3-night hotel stay. All you have to do is place a $25 same-game parlay between now and January 7th, and you're automatically entered to win. You don't have to do anything other than place a $25 same-game parlay, and you're automatically entered to win. So wager and win a trip to the Super Game in Las Vegas, courtesy of SuperBook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Not valid in Tennessee and Nevada. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, welcome back to Rondé and Tiki, presented by SuperBook. Tiki mentioned it, league parity at an all-time high. week 12 and we don't know who's going to win most games. But I think the NFL has exactly what it wants. Every single game matters. And, from a betting perspective, it's very interesting for Vegas. So let's take a recap. We're going to talk about parity, but let's take a recap. You mentioned the super game that's at the end of the year. We had a rematch of the super game this past week. And apparently, there is a clear number one in the NFL, Tiki, and that would be the Philadelphia Eagles.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
If only because of the incompetence of Kansas City's receiving options and their sudden turnover problem.
I mean, MVS, when the ball is dropping into your belly or your hands and you're wide open, you should probably catch it. Probably. I mean, I wish it was just him, though.
I know.
The Kansas City Chiefs are plagued by drops. I think they have 26, which is the most in the NFL.
Yep.
26. And this is a team that won the Super Bowl a year ago. So what the hell is going on?
Justin Watson is your top receiver in this game. He had 53 yards. Travis Kelce can be mitigated. You saw if you watched that game, Philadelphia said, anybody else other than this dude is beating us. We're going to double team as much as we can. And then you're sitting there saying your rookie, Rashee Rice, who is the second, the highest targeted receiver on the team other than the tight end.
Yeah.
And Hardman, Tony, they're whatever. They're chess pieces that don't get used a lot. They came in expecting Sky Moore to be the answer at wide receiver, and he's not. They don't have any other answers.
Yeah.
Like they have gone 3 straight games without a second half touchdown. And that just speaks to where this team is. They used to be a team that would go for the jugular, and Mahomes would run around, create 2 or 3 seconds of more time, and game over, right? That element to their offense is completely gone. It's not even consideration in my mind when I'm watching them. You just expected them to matriculate now. Move the ball down the field, hand the ball to Pacheco, let him be an angry little midget runner and run over people and get up flossing and whatnot and score like that. But there's no explosives in their offense anymore because the receivers can't catch the damn football.
Yeah.
And so to be in the position where they're at right now and playing this bad is probably a blessing for them because I don't know that they get themselves back on track. Like, how do you fix that midseason?
Well, you don't, because you can't add talent. I think the biggest challenge for the Kansas City Chiefs is that they're not very good in the receiver room. Right, there's some names in there, and there's guys that you'd say, "Oh, I know him. I know who that guy is. I've heard of him. Oh yeah, I know him." But they don't make game-changing plays.
No.
It's Travis Kelce, and let's be honest, Travis Kelce is distracted by his personal life right now. I mean, it's all he wants to talk about. It's all anybody else wants to talk about him. Now, it may sound like that's nonsensical and it doesn't have an impact, but trust me, it does. And when your mind isn't on what you're supposed to be doing on a Sunday afternoon, it's easy to get distracted.
Well, everybody else's mind is on that every Sunday afternoon.
Well, I know, but his has to be. There's no way it can't be. All right. And so he's not talking football anymore. He's talking about dating someone with the aura of Taylor Swift. Right. What? Like, seriously? I don't care. That's your personal life. I really, truly do not care. Be a great football player. That's what I care about. They're fortunate, the Kansas City Chiefs, that their defense, Rondé, is playing at an elite level. I mean, they're top. I mean, they're fantastic, and it's something you've never said about the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have to give, Andy Reid and the staff credit for being able, Spags, to disrupt every team that they play, including the Philadelphia Eagles, who they flummoxed a lot in the game on Monday night. And it wasn't until really the end of the game, the last drive or so, where Jalen Hurts started to feel like he was cooking. So you give the defense credit. They're holding on, right? I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs are just holding on and waiting for the real stretch run. Not this one, not this mid-November stretch run, Thanksgiving stretch run. They're waiting for, let's get to the last couple of weeks of the season. We've already positioned ourselves to be one of the top teams in the AFC. We'll go grab it when we need to go grab it. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know if that's actually what's going on, but that's what it feels like.
Spags has his team as the number 4 total defense in the NFL, number 4 against the pass, third most points, least amount of points given up, 16.4 points is just a couple of decimal points behind San Francisco and Baltimore. So it's the reason why they've stayed in games. And to be honest with you, they've lost the last 2 games, Denver before the bye week, and then Monday night's game to Philadelphia because of turnovers. They've had 7 giveaways in their last 2 contests. 2 of those are going in for scores. Kelsey drops the ball, gets fumble going in to score. Mahomes throws an interception in the end zone, going in to score. They had that game the other night completely in their control, and then they lost. They had Jalen Hurts completely wrapped up. He had 43 yards, I think, going into the midway through the third quarter, and then he, just like Russell Wilson did, created some magic at the end of the game and found a way to salvage a victory there. But we talk about the best teams in the league. They didn't look like the best team in the league, even though they have by far the best record in the NFL now at 9-1. But to me, they got both these teams who we consider the best have a long way to go before the end.
It just still speaks to the parity. I think Rondé, you mentioned something about that caught my ear. The Kansas City Chiefs comfortably had the lead. They led the entire game until the last drive, right? And so there was a time when the Kansas City Chiefs would step on your neck, right? They had you down. You weren't getting back up. They were running up to 45 before you even could figure out how to score. They're not that team anymore, and so it gives the rest of the teams in the AFC, I guess / NFL, hope that they're fallible. I just get the sense though that when it comes down to it, they'll find a way. They always do.
Here we go, Tiki. Only 2 teams in the AFC are considered out of it. We're going to say that's Tennessee and New England because they're going nowhere. And that does not include the New York Jets and the Los Angeles Chargers, who we think are kind of just not in it.
Yeah, Brandon Staley's got some heat.
Right. 3 divisions in AFC have 1-win leads. And the AFC West, the one we're just talking about, has a 2-game leader, and that's KC. Yeah. But they just lost to the team 2 weeks ago who has a 4-game winning streak. So that division is going to take a lot more dissecting. We'll do that next week. So let's focus instead on the NFC, Tiki. There are 8 teams in the NFC that have between 4 and 6 victories and are all still in it. They all have flaws. So
nobody's good.
Right. Here's the question we're asking ourselves here at the end of segment 2 of Ronde Tiki presented by SuperBook Sports. Which team has the best chance of emerging out of the last 7 weeks? Here are the teams, Tiki. You can just pick one. Just pick one. I want you to think about it. Washington, Minnesota, Green Bay, the entire NFC South except for Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Seattle, who you just had the game, you called them, and the Los Angeles Rams, the team they played last week that you called. So give me your one-team answer of those 8 that are going to emerge the last 7 weeks of the season.
I mean, it's egregious.
You can probably eliminate the Commanders, right?
I was going to say, I would lose all credibility if I picked a team that just lost to a 2-8 Giants team and can't beat their division rival. What you called, by the way. Good job. Yeah, I know. I like Sam Howell. I think he might be their guy, to be honest. But they have the worst offensive line in football, and they're all healthy. That's the bad thing. Minnesota, Green Bay, no. Atlanta. You know what? Can I caveat this?
Yeah.
If Geno Smith,
you can do whatever you want.
If Geno Smith is healthy, it's Seattle. Out of those, what is that? 8. Out of those 8, if Geno is healthy, it's the Seattle Seahawks because they have not played good football yet, and they already have 6 wins. They're 6-4, and the only reason they lost the game against the Los Angeles Rams, a game that me and Matt Ryan and Andrew Catalan, along with AJ Ross on the sidelines, we all called. They lost that game because Geno got hurt. He hurt his elbow,
Mhm.
and they put in Drew Lock, who just started throwing up moon balls, thinking they were going to come down. He had no chemistry with his wide receivers, but all he had to do was get 4 or 5 first downs. They stopped converting on third down. And Rondé, they had 130 yards in penalties.
That's ridiculous.
130 in
Yeah.
penalties, including a couple that extended drives for the Rams and one that put them point blank on the 1 yard line, which is a terrible pass interference call, which I said on the air. But still, I'm going to say Seattle if Geno Smith is healthy.
Yes,
Be,
because Drew Lock's not the one. He's
no,
he,
no.
he's not the one.
But if it's
My
if Geno's compromised, I probably got to say Minnesota, dude.
Right. So only reason I'll caveat Seattle is look at their point differential and they're in the negative. So their defense is giving up more plays than I think they
Right.
generally.
True,
Look,
but here's the thing, Rondé. If they stop shooting themselves in the foot, I mean, they do this every week, so I probably shouldn't assume that they're going to stop. I mean, they have 7 or 8 penalties every single week. It just
yeah.
doesn't, and it doesn't make sense because
All
it's
right.
dumb stuff. Even though one of those penalties was a 47-yard penalty, which I hate. I hate pass interference down the field, middle of the field. But whatever, you get the point. If they stop having penalties, Seattle can be a really good team.
All right. All right. So here's my take. So you can eliminate Washington. I think you eliminate Green Bay. I just don't think they're quite
Ready?
a complete team or ready with the quarterback. Seattle is definitely in the conversation. I'm going to eliminate the Atlanta Falcons. They got quarterback issues. They've lost 3 in a row. It doesn't permeate looking like they're going to get that solved before the end of the season. They'll be out of the conversation. So that really leaves 3 teams: New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Seattle as the
You forgot
3
many.
in Minnesota. So there's 4. And of those 4, the only one I really, really like is Minnesota. And the only, in my caveat, is that the quarterback is not great. He's good and he's doing something magical, but Brian Flores' defense is different, and they are doing things to make that team win. I read a stat the other day, and I don't know how this translates or even what it even means, but they rush 5 or more people more than anybody in the NFL, and they rush 3 or less people more than anybody in the NFL. So
Yeah.
think about that.
Yeah. So they dog more and they drop 8 more than anybody in the NFL.
Anybody in the NFL.
It's a contradiction.
It doesn't make sense.
But
And yet
that's why Brian Flores is so good at what he does.
and they're finding ways to make it work and make them stay in football games with the quarterback who's still trying to figure out what the play calls are. So that's my team.
He's just kind of magical in that way. Not phenomenal.
And they continue the Minnesota Vikings. This is you can't discount this. They continue to always be in 1-score games.
Mm-hmm.
They never get blown out. They never blow anybody out. They've had 11 1-score games this year. So
wow, that sounds like last year.
Yeah, where they won 11 of them. They won
11 of them. It's a good way to win.
Right.
Guess what? Did you know you can refer a friend and earn a $50 bonus this season with SuperBook Sports? SuperBook is the most trusted name in sports wagering, and you don't want to miss their Refer a Friend bonus. All you need to do is click on the Refer a Friend link under your profile and in the SuperBook app and share that promo code with your friends. You'll get a $50 bonus for everyone who registers using your code. So you can win money wagering and you can win money referring. Refer 5, you get $250. Refer 2, you get $100. This season with SuperBook Sports, refer a friend. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome to our last segment here on Ronde Tiki, presented by SuperBook Sports. This is Ask You, Ask Me. I'll ask Rondé first. Rondé, I just had your boy, Raheem Morris, and the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, Sean McVay's head coach, but, we prop up Raheem. Jimmy Lake is on that staff, by the way, he mentioned as well, assistant head coach. But the one thing I was taken by in that game is that there were 2, bona fide Hall of Famers. Obviously, Aaron Donald on the Rams side, who is unbelievable. He did this. He broke through the line on a toss left. He slipped the guard going to his left and then chased down the running back to his right. I was like, the big man can't move that fast.
Right.
And Bobby Wagner on the other side. right? Tell me I don't want to say the burden, but the responsibility when you and everybody you're playing with or is watching that game knows that you're a Hall of Famer and you got to do it every single day.
Right. It's such a great question because I wasn't that. I mean, I didn't my Hall of Fame credentials didn't take root until probably 3 years after I was eligible when people started really looking at it. You get that call to be in the top 25, and then you kind of know that you're going to get there, right? Eventually. These dudes, the two you just named, are going to retire, and it's a 5-year waiting list until they're in the Hall of Fame. First
Yeah,
ballot.
they
Sure.
probably should just say, you know what, you guys don't gotta wait.
You have to wait. Like, can we make an exception? Tom Brady's in that category last year, right? Why is this? Should we just make an exception and put him in the Hall of Fame? Aaron Donald is definitely that. J.J. Watt is probably in that conversation last year being retired. He's on a 5-year waiting list. Antonio Gates is a first ballot Hall of Famer up this year, his first time. He's going in, right? And so, like when you're playing and you're Aaron Donald, I think. And Bobby Wagner. And Bobby Wagner, it's a little less in this conversation because he's slowed down at the end of his career.
Mhm.
He's still a good player. He still makes a bunch of plays. I think everybody that looks at him sees why he's so good because he's so smart. He understands what's happening in front of him, and he puts himself in position to always be to make the play. The problem is he's just gotten old and can't do it as much. Aaron Donald, though, for this conversation, is a wonderful example of like what a freak looks like because he's what year 11? What year is this? 12 for him? I can't remember. He came out of Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter. He looks the same as he looked year 1 and 2. It's the dedication he puts into his craft and then going out and execute it. And so the burden, you asked me what the burden is. First of all, the burden on the coach, on Raheem as a defensive coordinator, is to continue to put him in position to do what he does best. And they do that. They run an odd front. It's 3-4, three down lineman, 4 linebacker type front with outside edge rushers, but they still make him a 3 technique. Mm-hmm. So he's not like a 3-4 defensive end. He's really like a 3-4 3 technique, which is very unique, and it allows him to continue to go do what he does and dominate. So his burden is to always be that. You don't want to see him a lesser version of himself, and go somewhere else and do whatever. Yeah. You want to see that over and over again. And if you watch how he prepares in the offseason and the way he practices, did you go to their practice?
No, we didn't because it was an hour and a half away from Manhattan
Right.
Beach.
When you watch him practice, it is like, you've got to be kidding me how much energy he has. And so it translates on the football field. It's a great, being a living legend, Hall of Famer while you're still playing. I mean, it's nice to watch him. There's not a lot of them.
No.
We tried to come through a list before this, and it's hard to come through a list of guarantees, but he was definitely one of them. All right, Tiki, the Ask You segment for me, we talked a lot. We promised to talk about this at the beginning. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, followed by last week, the Buffalo Bills doing this, fired their offensive coordinator. Matt Canada is gone. Kenny Pickett, quarterback, has been kind of up and mostly down this year. But the real question here, and you have expertise of this because this happened to you during your Super Bowl year. When you change coordinators mid-season, first of all, how does it work? And how can it be beneficial for, say, the entire offense?
Yeah. So this happened to me actually twice because we had back in obviously it happened in 2000 with Sean Payton when we went to the Super Bowl, but it also happened my last year of my career when John Hufnagel was our offensive coordinator. Right. And it was just communication issues. And we had to win the last few games to make the playoffs. And so I ended up saying something. Tom had to reassign him.
And, you said something? What?
Yeah, you know me. Tom had to reassign him, and Kevin Gilbride took over as the offensive coordinator. And it was kind of similar to what happened. It was happening with Canada in Pittsburgh. Where your talent is, like where your best asset is, and when you don't have a superstar quarterback, it's likely in the run game, right? And Najee Harris is that guy, and he's not getting the right kind of touches. Maybe he's getting the touches, he's not getting the right kind of touches. And so Kevin Gilbride came in and he changed, like, just not the system, because the system has to be the same, right, but he changed the sequence and how he called the game, and it allowed us to do some good things and win our last game, which was in Washington, which is famously my last game regular season, where I rushed for 234 yards. And so what it does two things, Rondé. It changes the sequence of play calling because it's an outside um, look, even though it's internal. It's an outside look at what that play caller was doing wrong, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like you're subordinate, right? You as a say a quarterback coach in this case, you're subordinate. You can't go to the coordinator and be like, "Dude, you're doing this wrong." Right? I mean, you could, but it's just
Am I?
yeah.
Am I?
Am I really? Okay, you're out. Like you get fired. And so I think it changes. Like it lets an internal look really evaluate what's going on from a critical standpoint, something that doesn't always happen in the NFL. And then two, it really gets the players excited. Like all of a sudden, you're like, oh yeah, we were asking for this, and they actually listened. And man, we have a chance now. So it reinvigorates you. You know
Right.
this at the end of the season, it's a grind, dude. Like your body's worn out. Like
Right.
coming to work on a Wednesday is just not fun anymore. But it just re-energizes you in a way that sometimes has some lasting and important effects on the season. So I
So
guess look, we saw it with Buffalo, right? With Joe Brady. Maybe we'll see it with the Steelers, and who knows where else it happens.
well, Deontay Johnson and George Pickens will no longer be bitching. All right, here we go, Tiki. Last segment. Let's run through real quickly all three of the Turkey Day games. Now, for
Mhm.
those of y'all that don't know, Turkey Day game started in 1934 with the Detroit Lions. It was their first year in Detroit, being renamed the Detroit Lions, by the way. And they started this tradition. 1960, the Dallas Cowboys under Hank Stram decided they wanted to be in the conversation. They wanted the national attention. They wanted to be America's team. And so stole a Thursday showing. And then, of course, 2006, when that third game that's rotating came into play. All right, first game, Tiki. Detroit plus 80, 280 at, Green Bay plus 280 at Detroit. Detroit are 7.5 point favorites at home. Green Bay had a gritty win last week. Detroit showed a very different way of winning football game after being down double digits to the Chicago Bears. What's your take on this one?
Well, first of all, Chicago's gonna have a real question. They got they're likely two of the top 5 picks in the NFL. Are they taking a quarterback? Because Justin Fields sometimes looks really good.
Like you did last.
Sometimes all right,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just kind of like, they gotta have a real decision. But this was a great win by the Detroit Lions because they are clearly were better than the Bears. It felt like a letdown game, and maybe it was because they were looking ahead. Not that they were looking ahead to
Yeah.
Green Bay, but they have a short week. So sometimes in those short weeks, you end up preparing, like multi-preparing. So I think they let it get away from them. But Jared Goff is a baller, dude. And when he had to make
Yeah.
the plays, they did. I like Detroit here at home, laying 7.5. This is not your mama's or your grandmother's Detroit Lions team. This team knows how to win, and I think against a Green Bay team that can scuffle at times, give me Detroit with 7.5.
I'm 100% agreeing with you. Detroit hadn't been 8-2 since I don't know. I don't think we were born, dude. So it's significant. Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, running back, Jared Goff threw 3 interceptions in this game and still looked like the best quarterback, best version of him as a quarterback.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely give me 7.5 Detroit. What's the next one? Next game, game 2.
Commanders at the Cowboys. Commanders are getting 425 plus 425 on the money line at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are laying 11. This over under 48.5. I'd say go over on this one. And someone here actually thinks the Washington Commanders have a chance. That's a question, not a statement. Um, I don't even know how I don't know how you bet on this game, man. Seriously.
I don't know how you bet on it because the Dallas Cowboys, if they're their best version of themselves, especially Dak Prescott, who has been the best version of Dak Prescott we've seen in a while the past 4 weeks of the season, they're not beatable. I know that Washington plays pretty good brand of defense, but they cannot keep up with what CD Lamb has turned himself into as a receiver. Brandon Cooks is getting more and more involved, and they look so comfortable now in McCarthy's offense that I think it's going to be like a shootout. This is going to be one of those games where they're going to show up and from the get go. Thanksgiving, you always rise to the occasion here. It's the middle game, so it's the one that everybody watches.
Yeah.
I think this is their best version of themselves. And can I point out that their defense, even though I think how many sacks, they have like 100 sacks last week.
Felt like
right. Deron Bland should be getting conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He had against Carolina last week. He had his fourth, mind you. I only have 8 of them in my career, Hall of Fame career, interceptions returned for a touchdown. I had 6 fumbles that I picked up and scored. This is his 4th interception for a touchdown last week.
And this season. Dude,
So,
Rondé, he has more touchdowns than some running backs.
Right. Give me Cowboys 11 here. I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, I
agree. And I think that their coach is on the serious hot seat. I love Ron Rivera, but he's on a hot seat here.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Rondé. The Cowboys have become blowout kings. Like they can blow. They can and will blow you out if they have the chance. I would also take the over because we know Eric Bieniemy is going to throw the ball a ton. Sam Howell is capable of doing it. I mentioned this earlier. I like Sam Howell. I think, honestly, he could be their quarterback of the future. I know he was a later round pick, but he throws the ball well. He's fearless, stands in the pocket, and he does a good job. But they're going to get blown out in this game. All right, last one.
Likely the game of the week, right? This is at least the game of Thanksgiving. San Francisco at Seattle, and San Francisco is -7 road favorites. We have a lot of those this year. This is another one. I think they're officially kind of back after their slide. That win versus the Bucks.
Mm-hmm. It was inevitable.
You do the show at home. You got to worry about the damn UPS guy ringing the doorbell and your dog's going crazy. I apologize for that. But Purdy had a perfect passer rating against the Bucks last week. They definitely have some stuff to clean up. They didn't score a point in the fourth quarter, and the Bucks had a chance to get back into the football game at the end. They had Baker Mayfield threw a ball, hit a defender, popped up interception, or would have made it a 1-point game. It would have got interesting.
Yeah.
This one, I think, is the caveat, and I'll let you talk to this because you had them last week, is if Geno who's expected to start plays, this looks a little closer to me than the 7-point line that's currently out there. And I think that might change depending on how close we get to make a decision, but they play soon. And by the way, Rick, I do not live in a zoo. I have 3 dogs.
So that is kind of like a zoo. Yeah, Ronnie, this will all depend on Geno Smith's health. If Geno Smith is not healthy, this is not a game. I'm assuming that's factored into the line as a 7-point home dog. As you know, Rondé, I don't know if did you ever play up at CenturyLink?
Oh yeah,
CenturyLink. So it's now Lumen Field, but that place is loud as hell. And if they're into it, and they should be, because this is a game that essentially would tie them for the division, the fan base should be all over this one. It's a Thanksgiving Day game. I mean, the energy should be there. That would give you the edge if you're Seattle, and I would think that they would cover with, again, this goes back to the caveat we were talking about before. If Geno Smith is healthy, I would take the 7, Geno and the 7, or the Seahawks, I should say, and the 7 to cover. But if he's not, he's banged up. They're gonna run away from him.
I know a lot. Go ahead.
They have a ton of talent, Rondé, because Kenneth Walker is probably questionable for this game. He went down with an oblique injury. But Zach Charbonnet, that rookie from UCLA who was previously at Michigan, the dude's a hard charger, man. I like how he runs. He wants to punish you, and it creates awesome play action because the way he runs. And Geno, 75%, 76% completion percentage, and I forget what the plus numbers are downfield in play action. If he's healthy, they have a chance to cover this.
Right. Plus 260 on that $100.
Dude, it's worth it. No, that's worth it. That is 100% worth it, because I think Geno's going to play. Here's the thing. This confounded me in the game that we called. Geno got hurt. He goes out of the game. He's got like ice pack on his elbow, and I'm like, why does he put ice on if he's coming back in? He takes it off.
I'll tell you why. Because they
he
were
tri-
they were giving up. They didn't think they didn't think they were going to have a chance. And then
No,
all
no,
of a
no,
sudden,
no. No, 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 no. They had it. They had the lead. So I think what they did was they put Drew Lock in, just like, don't screw it up. So
right.
he screws it up, and so the Rams take the lead. So now Geno's got like sleeves on his arm, and he's warming up, and he comes back, and the last drive he throws like 2 dimes. I'm
That's,
like,
that's that's what I mean. They were just giving up on the game. Like, we've already won this thing. We don't
oh
need
yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
LA is not good enough to come back. Well, maybe they are good enough
yes,
to come
but in
back.
my mind after the game, I'm like, Geno, if you could do that in the last drive of the game, why did you not do it for the
Right,
last 3 series? Because you
right.
would have won the game. If he plays, they win the game. So I think
Yeah,
he's going to play because obviously there's nothing structural. It's just probably a lot of pain.
right.
So we'll see. Anyways, that was a good show. We'll see you next week post Thanksgiving. Hope everybody has a fantastic Turkey Day. Eat too much, sleep too much, and have so much fun.
Food, football, and family, Tiki. That's what I was getting.
Oh, that's what you're getting at. I got you. Happy Thanksgiving.
See y'all.
The Rondé Tiki podcast is produced by SuperBook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Maryland, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, and Tennessee. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF or visit 800betsoff.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342.